The gentleman yields. The chair recognizes Mr. Allred for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for joining us again. I appreciate your patience today. I want to thank you for your continued support in getting the IIJA funding out of D.C. and into our communities. This legislation has had a significant impact in North Texas and will continue to shape our community for years to come. In fact, you just mentioned low-emission buses. In June of last year, DART, the Dallas Area Rapid Transit Agency, received a $103 million federal transit grant to help us modernize our bus fleet. In March of this year, the Southern Gateway Park and Clyde Warren Park and other North Texas projects received $80 million in funding from USDOT, thanks to grants as part of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or the IIJA. But one project that you and I have discussed several times in this setting that I'd like to highlight is Amtrak's partnership with Texas Central to develop a high-speed rail connecting Dallas and Houston, two of the largest metropolitan areas in Texas and the country. In December of 23, the project was awarded a $500,000 grant as part of the Corridor ID program funded through the IIJA, and this now public-private partnership, I think, is a great example of this administration's and our commitment to environmentally sustainable transportation while simultaneously supporting economic growth. And so you talked a bit about this when you were last in Dallas on TV, but here, could you just mention a little bit about how serious your agency is and you are about high-speed rail in Texas?
Thank you. We are enthusiastic about the potential, and the funding that comes with this corridor ID designation is both direct funding for planning activities and a signal of the potential that we see. When you look across the geography of the United States, the best candidates for high-speed rail service are geographies where you have two major metropolitan areas that are fairly close to each other, but really a short flight that borders on the realm of impracticality, or a long drive that also borders on the realm of impracticality. And creating that third option of a good high-speed ride can, we think, unlock enormous economic potential, and even for the people who don't use it, bring benefits in the form of reduced congestion on those roadways and those airports. So we look forward to seeing this proposal continue to develop, and I would be surprised if it did not lead to more applications for support as the vision continues to take shape.
I think that's right. And you mentioned, of course, reducing congestion. I have made that drive many times from Dallas and Houston. It's not an easy drive. The flight is not always the most convenient option. To me, this would just spur so much economic growth, and it's a common sense idea. But there's also the technology involved in it that I just wanted to briefly discuss, which is, I think it's the Shinkansen bullet train, which is made in Japan. It's the world's safest transportation technology, really, in many ways, operating without a fatality since 1964. Can you speak about your experience with this technology? And I understand that you might have had a chance to ride on one of these.
Yes, I had the privilege of riding on the Shinkansen train in Japan when I was attending the G7 meetings hosted by Japan last year for transportation ministers and my counterparts. It was an extraordinary experience, especially sitting up in that cab where I had an opportunity to observe the operator and seeing the operations center behind the scenes where they conduct those safe and efficient operations. It is rare for them to be more than a few seconds at variance from their published schedule. And as you mentioned, in a technology in a train going back to the 60s, they have an unbelievable safety record too. I think any American who sees that comes home and says, why can't we have something like this? And I think that's the kind of quality and the kind of efficiency that we should aspire to here in the U.S.
I am convinced that if we get one of these lines in Texas, we will get more. We are a perfect candidate for this. And really quickly, in the last 30 seconds I have here, I just want to commend you as the father of two small kids. I know your growing family, and to highlight the fact that passengers will no longer have to pay more to sit next to their kids on flights. To me, this is just common sense, but it's the kind of thing that really can make an impact in people's lives. And I think it's an example of your leadership. And at some point in our next discussion, I'd love to talk to you about our air traffic controllers, and how this FAA bill is going to help us restore that workforce. But with that, I'll yield back.
Thank you.
The gentleman yields. Mr. Duarte is recognized for 5 minutes.